Hello from Austin, Texas. I'm trying out this new format of getting you a lot more information, and thank you for being a part of this Stories in AI community. So here you go. Before January runs out, I try to do it before this beginning of the year, but you know how holidays can get. But before January runs out, I wanted to actually put out my predictions. And predictions are nothing but not that I can predict the future, but I'm just connecting the dots and calling out the bets that I would make personally for the year on how things are going to shape out. More importantly, I think predictions are a way to put a stake in the ground and hold yourself accountable for the bets you're going to go make. So here's how I see the year of 2022 play out. Number one, Bitcoin. I predict that Bitcoin will still struggle to find mainstream adoption. And that doesn't mean the large hedge funds, the large, the institutional, the sovereign funds and countries putting Bitcoin in their funds and treasuries. But it's, beyond that and beyond the anti-inflation community. I think the Bitcoin maxis, the folks who just believe that Bitcoin is everything and nothing else is anything else, they're completely screwing it up for the rest of us because it's I kind of see them as like the 16th century Catholic Church. They're driving away everyone who acknowledges any other crypto asset. They say no, Bitcoin is the only thing, and thereby limiting mass adoption. I think there was a important data point on how when you look at the adoption in the age group between 25 and 35 for Bitcoin is relatively lower. So that's an interesting indication of the mainstream adoption slowing down. And there's a bunch of other crypto experts who have opined that, yeah, that's actually a real trend that's going to happen. That said, I'm very bullish long term on Bitcoin. I believe it's the best thing that happened to or against monetary policy in the world today. Number two, the markets, stock market. We're going through correction. Everybody's screaming and yelling, and the market's dropping 10, 12, 15 points. We're inching close to that correction territory. But I still believe that big tech dominates the stock market today, 30% of S&P 500. And since technology is a deflationary asset, right, the traditional outlook of looking at fundamentals and PE ratios and stuff will just fade to the background. So most of the stock market dollars right now are built for models that doesn't really work with the latest technology companies. So I believe we'll see new highs for Teslas, the Apples, the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world. And Goldman Sachs, I think, predicts a 9% gain on the S&P 500 for the year. So I think markets will not correct, but I think there's going to be some softening of expectations. And then all the irrational exuberance is going to go down a little bit and get more real. Number three, Web3 and the crypto developer momentum. I always believe that developers are a leading indicator of times to come, right? And developer momentum is a big deal. Now, there is a ton of noise on Web3. There is World War III on Twitter, as I said in my blog, between the Web3 VCs like Andreessen Horowitz, Chris Dixon, and that gang, and the true developers, like folks who are more developer friendly, who've done other things like Jack Dorsey. There's a whole Aaron Levy. I have a lot of respect for all of them, and they're having big debates like, hey, Web3 is not exclusive to VCs. What's really wrong with Web2? Web2 has generated so much value, but it's all beyond that. All that is dialogue to me, right? And the good news is it's a lot of good dialogue happening in the open, and this will create new ideas. But I think there is some truth to the fact that VCs don't really exactly know what's happening, but the reality is VCs are also a leading indicator of where things are going because they pay attention, right? And I don't think the Web3 movement is and should and will be led by the developers and not the armchair developer VCs, as they call it. But definitely there is a huge movement happening there. The number of Web3 developers rising every month is just amazing. AI, my favorite topic. Number four, AI moves beyond experimentation. And for the last decade or so, AI has been in the realm of how do we solve problems how do you solve a problem and then put that into a machine learning model and then try to deploy it in production. But I think as AI becomes more and more standardized and being a fabric of infrastructure, if you will, I think there is enough momentum in the market to create the two parties, creators or makers and consumers of AI technology. And I think as that happens, there will be a level of abstraction that's being set that people don't have to worry about how do I deploy GPUs anymore, right? You just go and get the GPU instances in Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. So I think there is a lot of standardization that's happening and consolidation that's happening on the infrastructure layer for AI techniques and open source momentum around language models like transformer models and so forth. All of that will lead to an explosion of innovation on the applied AI layer. And I think we're going to see real momentum on AI moving beyond just experimentation. The ML ops challenges will still remain, and it'll remain as long as we don't realize and recognize that this is not a tooling problem. It's a problem of how do you get very smart individuals who have different concerns, be it data engineering, data science, DevOps, model ops, all of them together to solve problems and run things in production. AI ethics, will continue to be a buzzword. That's number 5. I don't think it'll go mainstream yet, but that said, I think if there is a GDPR moment that happens when governments and policymakers actually decide to put hammers on it, it's going to just explode. And companies like Credo AI, who's one of my portfolio companies, will just benefit from that particular momentum. DAOS, the decentralized autonomous organization. Number 6, as a quick funding vehicle, decentralized autonomous organizations have, they will continue to be hyped in 2022, right? And they will be the SPACs of 2021, right? And I think there will be a rise of VC DAOs, or how do you actually embody venture funds as a decentralized organization controlled by the community. That's going to be a big driver. Number 7, manufacturing. Manufacturing will be sexy again. The labor shortage, the stalled cargo ships causing all the supply shortage, China flexing its muscle in Taiwan and TMSC risk and so forth will just make a lot more, every part of the world is going to start looking at how do I do manufacturing locally, which is a great thing for the economy, right? Number 8, the metaverse wars. Beyond the marketing hype, this truly brings it to attention. The metaverse is, as Rich Lotlicker says, is the next evolution of the internet, right? It really, we have to go from being just a medium for communication and broadcast to now becoming a medium for collaboration, communication, and livelihood, right? Creator economy and so forth. So I think there's going to be a huge momentum in 2022. There'll be a lot of hype, but I think the metaverse is you're going to start seeing parts of and pieces of technology being developed with an uber collective vision of a metaverse that's going to benefit everybody. Number 9, financial inclusion makes headway. I think we're already seeing that. The crypto hangovers, the fintech boom, the unicorns that'll in fintech will all make it easier for individuals and businesses to gain access to capital without the red tape, without the bureaucracy, without waiting and submitting, thousands of pages of documentation, right? We saw this first with DeFi, and I think there's a bunch of, I call it crypto rich kids around the world, but I think these are very disruptive forces that will open up and disambiguate the traditional financial system, creating opportunities for everybody. And my last one, number 10, is private valuation. Startup valuation is off the peak, right? Dan Primack wrote a very thoughtful small piece on this, and I think this was long coming. He said, when you look back from last year, it looks like the valuations today are lower than the valuation it was about a couple of months ago when you look back into 2021. And that's an indication that we are past the peak and we're getting to a lot more normalized view of where the market is, right? Where private valuations are. That said, if you're a startup raising money, look, the VCs have already raised the money. They already have money in the bank. They have to deploy. So there's no dearth of capital. It doesn't change anything. The difference is going to be, I think, valuations will be more realistic than crazy through the roof. So those were my 10 predictions for 2022. Tell me what you think. And thank you again for listening. Thank you for watching. And please do subscribe to Stories in AI. Follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And send me a note, shoot me a note at ganesh@storiesinai.com and tell me what you think. Looking forward to hearing from you.